Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Just one quick housekeeping before we begin our service. Technically speaking, you've heard me give this announcement. We are still virtual, even though this place is beginning to fill with bodies. And somewhere right above Cantor Whitner's head is our virtual copy of Mishkan Tefillah for those watching at home. But in front of you or underneath you, you will see the prayer book that we are using during this time. And after tonight's service or throughout this week, I'm just curious about what you think about this prayer book. Just send me an email to Cantor and me. We'd really appreciate it. Cantor.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. On page 128, we open by singing Hinei Matov, Psalm 133. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Page 124 at the top, and please feel free to join me in this reading. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors through lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into the sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. And it's our great honor to welcome Leighton and Joanna as they come to the bima to light our Shabbat candles. Second candle.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav metzivanu lehatlik ner shel Shabbat.
For those who are able, we rise together for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushana b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu zikaron lama'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom tehila lamikra kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshacha ba'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
Time to take a sip.
Chaim.
Please be seated. We turn to page 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure, but what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand and wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, and especially day of peace. And we continue with Psalm 95, page 130.
Lechu neranena l'Adonai, nariya letzur yisheinu. Lechu neranena l'Adonai, nariya letzur yisheinu. Nekat mafanav b'toda bizmirot, nariya lo ki el gadol Adonai umelech gadol al kol Elohim asher beyado mechkerei aretz metoafot harim lo asher lo hayam vehu asahu meyabeshet yadav yatsaru ki hu Eloheinu v'anachnu amarito v'tzor the Shabbat with Lecha Dodi on page 138. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'diburecha tishmianu el hamiyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem ultiferet v'litila. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu b'nei el-chakim mekor ha-bracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machasham batechila. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Itoreri ki ba'orech kumi ori shir dameri kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We rise together to greet Shabbat HaMelcha, the Sabbath bride.
Boi v'shalom ateret malakam b'simcha uv'toholat toch emunei am segula. Boi chala Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechandon di likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We turn to page 145. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. And we continue with our Chetzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא תברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי מחייכון וביומכון ובחי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב מאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשם. בריחו לאלה מן כל מחתה ושירתם. תושבע בחטא ונחמתה תמירן בעלמם ואמרו Amen.
We turn to page 146 and we rise together.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nivarech, let us bless.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam ba'ed. Le'olam ba'ed. Yadadai dai dai. 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 Yadadai dai dai.
We turn to page 148.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma potea sha'arim, uvitvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, sader et chakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, galel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or. Umavir yom umavi laila, umavdil bein yom uvein laila, Adonai tzivaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid imloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Amen. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, amecha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochbeinu uvkumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha, leolam va'ed. Ki hei mechayenu, be'orech yameinu, uvahem nehegeh yomam v'layla. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. And finally, to remember just why all these things matter. They matter because I, Adonai Elohecha, brought to you by your children out of Egypt to be God for you. I am your God, and when you do these things, I will be your children's God.
The top of page 157, we continue. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Our song of redemption and freedom, our Michamocha, page 158.
Kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei felel, nora tehilot osei felel, Adonai melech leolam va'ed. Malchutecha ra'u banecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, se'eli anu ve'amru, se'eli anu ve'amru, Adonai melech leolam va'ed. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da.
The top of page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Our Hashkivenu, a prayer that we say at night to give us that strength, page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Behamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Mehamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Mehamidenu shomreinu
Page 163. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We continue with Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. Vishamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
page 165. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. We rise together for tefillah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד עטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue on the top of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. We continue on the next page with Ritzeh.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam me'ahava tekabel u'tehil l'ratzon tamid avotat Yisrael Yisrael amecha el karov lechol kore'av v'nei elavatecha v'choneinu שפוך רוחך עלינו ותחננו תחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון. ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו
Page 179. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. Make contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of thy name hallow every home and every heart. Praise are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. B'tov einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
We take a few moments for silent prayer.
יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, מהגיון ליבי לפניך, my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Ose shalom bimromav, uya'aseh shalom aleinu, me'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru ve'imeru.
We're at that moment in our service where we take time to think of those in our community, those in need of healing of body or strength. And this Shabbat, we especially think of Linda Applebaum, Harriet Bagby, Cindy Bailey, Sophia Berry, Katie Bates, Harold Seitlin, Deborah Schragois, Sunita Costa, Melvin Davis, Buster and Eileen Griffith, Elaine Gross, Josie Hatfield, Evelyn Held, Norma Jill Jacobson, Bart Colber, Jerry Lapidus, Wayne Lewis, Jan Milet, Chrissy St. Charles, Elena Stern, Brenda Weinstein, Jesse Weisberg, Elisa Rosemore Whitehead, and Edward Goldberg. For those who are with us tonight, if you're thinking of a loved one, a friend, a neighbor, someone who means so much to you, who's in need of body, of healing, we invite you to share that name out loud as my eyes meet yours. For those names mentioned out loud, and for those names that are still in our hearts, are Misha Berach, the middle of page 371.
Strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and to let us say, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
I know you guys are anxious as we begin our spiritual journey. But before we get to that, and Paul's anxiously getting ready, I just want to share something about Yom HaAtzmaut as we celebrate Israel turning 73. And I wanted to find the right words, the right things to say with our community tonight. It's been a rough week for our country. I think the events in Minneapolis late last night, in Indianapolis, it's a difficult world, and sometimes we desperately want something good in our lives, something that we can go to bed smiling, that we quell. For those that know me, I believe that the essence of Judaism is to be there for people, and the best way that we do that is by showing up. We show up for a simcha, whether it's a bat mitzvah. We show up when someone is sick at the hospital, or we have to be there to comfort the mourner. And as we connect the events this week here in this country and celebrating in the state of Israel, I found the perfect story that can give us some peace, perhaps just for this weekend or perhaps a little longer. As Israel celebrated its 73rd anniversary and also its Memorial Day, they invited a special torchbearer during the ceremony on Mount Herzl. They invited 14 men and women, but the person I want to mention for us tonight is someone named Mahir Ibrahim. And based on this person's name, he is an Arab Israeli, a resident of Dubaraya, a Arab village in northern Israel. He also is a nurse at Emek Medical Center and Alufa, and he's actually the head nurse at the hospital's COVID-19 unit. He was treated a Hasidic patient, a blessed memory, named Shlomo Galster for coronavirus for more than a month at the hospital. And when the medical staff realized that Galster's family would not make it to the hospital to say the Vidui, and especially the Shema, and these are the words that we say right before we pass, a Muslim, Ibrahim, took it to himself to say the Shema on behalf of Shlomo. And sometimes when we celebrate Israel's independence, especially at Mount Herzl, for those who have been there, it's quite a magical display, something that we're all proud of. When we read something like this, in which the mayor of Jerusalem calls a tangible expression of the partnership that he is part of the hallmark of Israeli society. And something like this really gets to me. Because so many times in our lives we want someone to be there for us. And here's someone whom we least expect, an Arab Israeli and a Hasidic Jew, who found sacred partnership at this moment. So I hope this story can bring all of us peace, smile perhaps, as we celebrate Israel's 73rd birthday. And on that note, who's ready to go on a spiritual journey? It's okay to laugh. This is the second annual Omer game. And as I said last week and the week before, that second night of Pesach, we begin to count that Omer, to begin our blueprint, to get that Torah at Sinai. And for us Reformed Jews, Shavuot for the most part is marked with confirmation, but we're going to do something special here at Temple Emanu-El for the years to come. It's to remind us of the power of that Omer. And therefore, Paul is up, and he is ready to go. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, Paul. I give you permission to take off the Bane mask. It's okay. It's from Batman. Okay. Okay, Paul. You can go, Mike. Okay.
Thank you. So this evening's number, we are up to evening number 20 in counting the Omer. And I'll start easy, and then we'll progress from there. And following the cantor's example from last week, I have some secular number 20 connections, and then some that are specifically connected to Judaism. So we'll start with an easy one. Anyone want to venture a guess, you historians here, who was our 20th President of the United States? Okay, here's a hint. His term was the second shortest in our history. Second shortest. It was cut short by an assassin's bullet in a train station. Yes, Garfield. Very good. And following the rabbi's example from last week, who was Garfield's vice president?
Oh, come on.
Well, he succeeded him, of course.
Oh, true.
Anyone want to venture a guess? Chester Arthur. So, and while we're on easy things, 20th letter of the English alphabet is T, but what is the 20th letter of the Hebrew alphabet? I'll give you a hint. Well, it looks like a bent over person. Raish, very good. Thank you, Cantor. Said what? Oh, that's all right. Close enough. If I hadn't looked it up, I wouldn't have gotten it either. How about some sports? There are a lot of players who wore the number 20. The number 20 has actually been retired by more than one sports team because of a player that had such an outstanding record with them. So we could start with basketball because we just finished college basketball season just a week or two ago. Several players wore number 20, professional basketball players. Anyone want to mention one? Somebody that played for the Celtics?
Come on, Siegel. There's no basketball players in front of
Havlicek?
Pardon me? I don't know about Bird,
33.
but he was 33, was he? Okay. So, how about Ray Allen? Played for the Celtics for about 5 seasons. So, well, maybe since we're in Alabama, we should mention NASCAR number 20. A number of drivers have driven NASCAR car 20, but anyone want to mention one? Maybe somebody who had several wins in that car? I mean, these are not names from the 1950s. These are more recent than that. Can't hear you. People aren't jumping in there, Rabbi.
This is a synagogue. NASCAR. Okay.
NASCAR? We don't do NASCAR? With Talladega just down the street? Yeah. Tony Stewart. And also, if you had said Matt Kenseth, you would have been right there also. And even Joey Logano had a couple of wins in number 20 car. But we digress. How about football? Number 20 in football? There you go. Barry Sanders, very good. Played for the Lions. Good running back. If you see the number 20, it's probably going to be either a running back or a safety, somebody like that.
Brian Dawkins. Yeah.
Who?
Brian Dawkins.
Yeah, there you go. Brian Dawkins, very good. Funny you should mention Brian Dawkins because he played for the Eagles. That's my home team, being from Philly originally. And how about baseball? Number 20 in baseball?
Anybody who wore number 20? Jorge Posada.
Yeah, Posada did. So did Frank Robinson. And, of course, again, Philadelphia, Mike Schmidt, who played pretty much his whole career with the Phillies. And I believe I think the Phillies retired his number when he retired. Okay, well, let's move ahead. What is what's the 20th? I'll start with a softball one. What's the 20th book of the Bible in the Old Testament? No, before that. I think before that. 20th book of the Old Testament.
Which publication, the New Revised Standard Edition or the Tanakh?
Well, probably the one that I'm more familiar with would be.
The New Revised Standard Edition. Luther changed the order, so why don't you tell us the 20th book?
Okay. Well, it's right after Psalms. Proverbs,
Yeah.
right. So, and, okay. As you know, Israel was ruled by judges, and then that wasn't good enough for the Hebrew people They asked for a king, and that led to a lot of problems. But it was divided into the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Which kingdom, Israel or Judah, had 20 monarchs? Well, you have a 50-50 chance of being right. Okay, that would be Judah, and the reason I said monarchs is they had actually 19 kings and one queen in that time. Okay, speaking of number 20, what's the significance of the number 20 in Judaism? Anyone want to take a stab at that one? Significance of number 20. See, I get to do a drosh tonight. 20. What?
Half a generation.
It signifies completeness. And there are several instances in the Bible where 20 is invoked. For example, Jacob had to work a total of 20 years. 7 years, and here was Leah. Another 7 years to be able to marry Rachel. And then 6 more years tending Laban's flocks. And he finally was relieved of he had no further obligation after that. 20 years there. It took Solomon 20 years to build the temple. And in fact, earlier than that, when Abraham was bargaining with God, they finally decided, okay, if you find 20 righteous people, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So usually it's the idea of after a particular period of labor or trial that completeness or redemption follows after the 20 years. So I found that interesting anyway. And I think that's a good place to stop. Okay.
Tell you one thing, they did not teach us 20 in rabbinical school, so. But I do want to say that Ray Allen, by the way, that's an important name. He was actually went on a trip to Auschwitz and became so inspired that he actually serves on the United States National Holocaust Memorial Board. It had such a lasting impact on him. We rise together, we turn to page 580, no, Homer, what, 570?
Oh. 70.
570. Homer,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al svirat haomer.
Hayom Esrim, Yom Shehem Shnei Shavuot Yamim LaOmer. Today is 20 days, which is 2 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. We remain standing for Aleinu 586.
Aleinu leshabeach l'Adon hakol לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
We turn to page 593. When nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision and grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We've set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. On this Shabbat, we recall the yortzites of Ben Aarons, Don Adler, Ellen Berman Ayland, Jack Becker, Fred Berman, Coleman Black, Sarah M. Black, Walter Isaac Block, Ann Rosenberg Brody, Jay Cohen, Esther Cohen, Artressie Diane Cook, Ida Gingold Cotton, Mary Louise Diamond, Nettie Mae Elkis, David Finkelstein, Sophie Fox, Stanley Friedman, Shirley Gold, Arlene Lipson Goldberg, Ida Goldberg, Alvin Goldberg, Benny Goldstein, Benjamin Goldstein, Fred Goldstein, Ike Gottlieb, Renee Heimson, Catherine Hannon, Nettie Schwartz-Hess, Cindy E. Hiller, Adolf Hirsch, Rachel S. Jaspin, Simon Kessler, Hugo Kuhn, Lillian Kurtz, Joe Landau, Rosa Libovici, Frida Lightman, Gerald J. Lewis, Victor Hugo Marks, Rose Leah Mazer, Harry Meisler, Abraham Solomon Miller, Paul P. Mitnick, Giselle Pincus Morwitz, Bertha Lehman Newfield, Sonia K. Newmark, Loretta Bernstein Norris, Louis Oppenheim, Maria Opsimer, Ann Purley, Herman Pinkerson, Jerry Prince, Barry Roseman, Charles Robert Ruffing, Mark Louis Rosikoff, Herman Sachs, Hannah Schnipper, Sandra Seaton, Enid Silverstein, Joe Slaughter, Velma Sohn, Bryna Talper, Sam Tannenbaum, Lawrence Warner, Joyce Weintraub, Erwin D. Wolf, and Erwin Wolf Jr., and our heartfelt condolences in the recent passing of Kimberly Krasowski, niece of David and Donna, and Lee Schnipper, wife of Jack. We rise together as a united congregation for Martyrs Kaddish on page 598. Yigadal, Vigadash Shemei Rabbah, V'yomad Yivrach Riote V'amlich Malchute, V'chayachon V'yomechon Uvchayet Kol Beit Yisrael, Ba'galah Uizman Kariv Yimru.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah Nivarach Le'olam Olamei Maya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitba'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudsha
Barichu.
Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata Damin Ram B'yoma V'yimru.
Amen.
Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru. Amen. Osei Shalom B'imromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru. Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'imromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Me'imeru.
Our closing song, Hatikva.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.